on hot topics with people who don't share your same beliefs. Your host, Sabrina Protic, Dr. Katrina Esau, and Gary Rogers. Now let's get ready to have that conversation. Uncomfortable Conversations is powered by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship on Facebook.
Welcome to Uncomfortable Conversations. My name is Sabrina Protic. I'm a life and financial coach. I'm also author of the book, Growing Ageless, Think Young and Live Younger. I have my co-host here sitting in sunny Florida, Gary Rogers, who is a retired Canadian Football League player and founder of Check Your Game. And also we have Dr. Katrina Esau. She is author of the book, Pain of Fidelity, Birth's Purpose, and the Blueprint to Becoming Whole. And she's founder of Whole. Now that's spelled W-H-O-L-E Academy. Welcome to Uncomfortable Conversations, Gary and Dr. Katrina. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Doing wonderful, Gary. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm great. You know, this fake backdrop in the background, it makes it look like I'm doing really good. But I rented this for about an hour, so after this hour's up, it's going to be storming. You won't see anything good like that.
Gary, you're going to have to figure out how to UPS that sunshine up to people up in the northern states, okay? They may want some of that. Let's hear a little bit from Dr. Katrina. Tell us, Dr. Katrina, you've got a new vlog, and that's spelled V-L-O-G, in the Trendsetter Mentorship Group on Facebook. So tell us about that, and also tell us about your Whole, H-O-L-E Academy.
Yes. So the vlog is actually the core focus is around healing and forgiveness. And it's me, sharing my story about my own bout with infidelity and how I overcame that. And so just sharing with the audience, sharing with the different people of how they can do the same thing, how they can walk in a whole place, how they can walk in true forgiveness and just reclaim their power. And the Academy, Whole, is wives healing openly, leaving him exalted. And I just want to say the him, because I get asked the question a lot, who is the him? Some people think I'm talking about their spouse. We're not exalting man. I'm talking about my Lord and my Savior. So that's who I'm exalting. But in the Academy, I help wives that have been impacted by infidelity, just helping them to overcome the different struggles that come with it, the shame, the guilt, the embarrassment, anger, all of that stuff. So it's a lot. All the coursework is around healing and forgiveness. So it's an honor and a blessing to be able to help somebody else overcome just like I did. It's been 17 years now. And so it's just amazing.
Talk about uncomfortable conversation. That is one to have for Dr. Katrina to put that out there about what happened in her own life openly. And I want to say she has remained married. And so you'll have to join the Academy and read her book to find out how all of that came about. They're still united. So,
yes, just celebrated 25 years, Christmas Day. So, and it's better than it ever was. It's definitely better than it was before the cheating and the infidelity. Let me just say that.
That's why you're perfect for this show, because you're open and honest and you're able to talk about topics that some people shy away from. And speaking of that, each week, this show is designed to enlighten, encourage, and empower our viewers to have those very same uncomfortable conversations, but about different topics. These could be of a personal nature, a business nature. They could be social issues that impact us all around the world. There are conversations that we often put off, maybe because of fear, maybe because we may not really want to hear the other person's perspectives, maybe because we really think we're right. Maybe we just aren't open-minded, or maybe we think it's so sensitive that we'd rather just avoid it. But if you've lived any kind of a life and been in a relationship or worked for anyone or been in business, putting it off is not the answer, because eventually it's going to come up and then it's explosive. So we kind of explore and unpack how we can allow people to have their perspectives with respect, dignity, and honor. and how to tailor those conversations so both sides are heard. Let's face it, there's pros and cons to every conversation, every topic. After all, there's nothing new under the sun. There really isn't. So we want to tailor things so that we're able to talk about those things. So people, when they hear uncomfortable conversation, go, ooh, what are they gonna be talking about? I don't know if I want to do that. I don't want to step on any toes. This is not about stepping on toes. This is about the dignity and respect these topics deserve. So with that in mind, we're actually going to talk about a topic today of the pros and cons of gaming and the impact it has on our children. But first, we're going to watch a video, and when we come back, we're going to introduce our distinguished guest panel to help us unpack this topic on sports and gaming.
Uncomfortable Conversations Talk Radio is sponsored by the Trendsetter Mentor Group, an exclusive membership for mentorship. You can follow all our hosts on Facebook. Search Trendsetter Mentor Group and join. Now back to the show.
According to 1S, young Americans spend 10,000 hours playing video games before they turn the age of 21. That's about the same amount of time they spend in the classroom during all of middle school and high school.
That's a sobering comparison, isn't it? The American Academy of Pediatrics says 92% of school-age kids play video games. Nearly 10% of those kids are addicts. Scary numbers for all of us. Jennifer Jolly is tech lifestyle editor at Tekka.com, and here with some advice on helping us navigate those numbers, perhaps bring them down a little bit even.
It's scary, isn't it?
Yeah.
How serious though is this among children? I mean, what are the consequences to all of this time spent gaming and to this addiction?
Well, several recent studies say that an online gaming addiction or gaming addiction in general can lead to depression. It can lead to social phobia, poor grades, childhood obesity, and get this, you guys, it can lead to dementia.
Even at such a young age, they're seeing it could lead to dementia?
Yes, at age as young as 10 years old, they're seeing signs of dementia in children from really an excessive use of these video games.
These numbers, though, when you hear them and you hear the amount of time, just the volume that these kids are spending in front of these TVs, just, I mean, did it surprise you? I mean,
it did surprise
it's staggering.
me. It did surprise me, but they're saying that 21 hours or more, that's sort of the sweet spot. 0 to 21 hours, no problem. Above 21 hours is when the addiction really kicks in. Now, 21 hours sounds like a lot, but when you break that down, 3 hours a day, maybe a lot longer on the weekends, you realize a lot of kids are playing 21 hours or more.
They are. Even 3 hours a day sounds like a lot. So beyond the actual time itself, if you're not sitting there with a stopwatch looking at how long your kid is playing a video game, what are some of the other warning signs here?
Well, some of the other really key indicators that your child could have a problem are declining school performance, losing interest in hobbies like sports or reading or even going to the mall with friends, normal activities in young people, a lack of self-interest and self-care. So, you know, hygiene goes down the tubes, bathing, sleeping, eating, and then social withdrawal, and then lying about playing or hiding the amount of time that they're spending playing these games.
See, I think that's been one of the big problems with a lot of kids these days. Is back when I was younger and our parents were younger, you know, you're out playing baseball, you're out playing basketball, you're out doing things. You so don't see that as much anymore because these kids are just so consumed with this stuff. Now, mind you, when you see commercials, the stuff is brilliant, the games, but the kids are just absolutely brainwashed.
But probably the other thing, too, is if there was an Atari, it was maybe in the living room or in the family room. A lot of these kids have it in their bedrooms nowadays. So how do we set those boundaries as parents?
Well, you just hit on it. One of the biggest boundaries is get the gaming units, the consoles, the cell phones, the smartphones, get them out of the bedroom and into a common area so that you can really watch what they're doing and monitor their behavior. Also, set time limits. An hour a day is plenty, and more time on the weekends. And make sure that other parents are aware of your personal limitations so they can't hole up in somebody else's house and spend hours and hours on these games.
If there's a parent at home saying, well, my kid spends 4 or 5 hours a day on these things and it's obviously unhealthy, what would be a healthy boundary if there was, I guess, I don't know, just some ground rules that you could lay out there for people?
Well, a lot of studies show that up to 21 hours a week can actually have positive health benefits on kids. It can make them healthier and happier.
3 hours a day, that just seems outrageous.
Well, right. Yeah. So the key is to play a lot of face-to-face playtime. So play with your children. Play cooperative games instead of competitive games. And a study by BYU, Brigham and Young University, says that girls especially who play video games with their mom and dad end up feeling closer to their parents. So there are positive benefits to this when it's done in moderation.
That's the way to get through to your teenage daughter. Who knew?
Yes, exactly.
Come on, Janie, we're going to play some Grand Theft Auto together.
I'm thinking maybe more like Wii tennis. Jennifer, nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you.
Okay, wow, I'm smiling because I played Grand Theft Auto. I had kids at home, and so I've been through this whole scenario, and I have my views on this, okay? But welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. Our conversation is on video gaming and the impact on that coronavirus is actually having. It's kind of playing a role because now our kids have more time and they have more devices. So they're spending time on these esports and video games. Question. The video that we just watched was actually published in 2011. Ooh, so we know a lot's happened then. Though 92% of high schoolers back then, and that was 2011, that children have been crazy about playing these video games for decades. But the advent of computer gaming systems now, like they said, some of these games are phenomenal. You almost feel like you're right there on the field. I've seen some of these games. I mean, you scored a touchdown, great. You got everybody cheer. They're great. But, because of mobility now, these personal devices, tiny little tablets and cell phones, that now it's going into homes, apartments, even bus stops. I can't even imagine driving past a bus stop now, which I really don't pay that much attention to. Well, we got the pandemic, but I bet we probably see kids' faces down in their phones. I mean, it's probably a lot crazier than even I realized because I don't have school-age children. But, we've got iPhones and iPads and all sorts of gaming online. So while video games have a lot of bad press, they do have some benefits. So we're not going to totally just go red on this thing. The challenge is to find the best balance between positive material and reasonable restrictions. After all, video games are meant to help your child with hand-eye coordination, maybe a little bit of concentration. I mean, there are some benefits even to become skilled at using devices, because now, if you don't know how to use a device, you can be behind, right? But our call to action here is to have a conversation with a diverse group of guests and discuss what the pros and cons are and how we can find the right balance in moving forward. We're going to pull our guest on the screen. And so go forward, Dr. Esau and I and Gary, we're going to kind of evaluate this whole Esau thing. Dr. Esau, are you and your husband a fan of video esports?
We don't do esports and not really into video games now. We don't do that now, but when my daughter was home and was at that age, we did have a Wii for her to be able to play. And so we did a lot of the academic games at the time, and then stuff like where you can actually get up and move, like the bowling and those type of things. So it's something that we have done. We're not exempt, but do we do it now or entertain it now?
Gary, what about you on that? Do you do video esports?
I wouldn't say I'm necessarily sports, but I'm on my phone sometimes, and there's an ad that's showing, hey, something about a game, an online game, and I could so easily get caught up, and I'll download the app, and I'm sitting there playing it on my stupid cell phone, and I'm getting sucked in, and it's not good, and the only way to handle that is for me, got to delete it.
Well, and there you heard it. Now we're going to go to some real experts here who know what physical exercise and gaming is all about. We've invited Scott Matthew Heeman, retired MLB baseball catcher. Now, there's a lot here about Scott, so I am going to read it because he needs his just due here. Scott played with the 1989 through 1995 for the Oakland Athletics Chicago, White Sox, and St. Louis Cardinals. Scott played collegiate baseball for the University of South Florida, where his number 11 was retired and was drafted in the 5th round by the Kansas City Royals. In 1986, Scott Heeman was drafted in the 1st round, 12th pick, by the way, by the Oakland Athletics, where he played 7 seasons in the major league as a utility player, playing every position at the MLB level except pitcher. Hemo was a member of the 1989 Oakland Athletics World Series team and 1990 American League Championship team. Hemo was the recipient of the Oakland Athletics single season most stolen bases record as a catcher. Woo, great accolades there. Currently, Scott trains students from little league to professionals. Scott's deep understanding of baseball mechanics, combined with his unique teaching ability and revolutionary baseball training programs, lend to the best instructions available for baseball and softball players. Scott, welcome to Uncomfortable Conversation Show. Hello, Scott. How are you?
Well, hello, and thanks for the great introduction.
Hey, you deserve it. I'm just in awe as I read all of this. I do have a question for you, though, Scott. Tell us about your passion for coaching and for mentoring children in sports. And how have you pivoted during this pandemic to continue your mission of empowering people?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. Well, first of all, I try and give my energy, right, to young players, and hopefully that'll carry over and I can hand over some of my energy. I always think good energy is contagious, right? So like at my facility, for instance, we don't have the TV playing, even though the parents want to watch sports and whatnot. We just don't have it on unless we're actually using it for something to teach with. So during the pandemic, though, we actually broke out some computer games, and we did that for the kids so they could do it right at our place, because they're used to doing it just at their house, and they weren't allowed to, interact. People are trying to stay home and do the same thing. So when we had teams that were cleared to come in, whole 9 yards, we'd actually get a few PlayStations going, and those guys would have a blast with it on the TV right there in the shop. Otherwise, I just encouraged everybody. We made sure everybody's socially distanced and all that, but have them come to our place and do some more physical activity, go outside and play basketball, just a physical workout to get away from just being crowded inside all the time, right? So we made it, we kind of changed our program and changed how we normally do things, just so we could get more kids into the place, just separate their times a little bit longer, stayed open a little bit later, open up a little bit earlier, so that we could keep these guys going, because we know everybody's getting crazy sitting at home all the time.
Wow, that is a nice balance. I like what you said. You brought them together. You gave them a little bit of that, but then you said, hey, let's get physical here.
Absolutely.
Perfect, coming from a great coach. I love it.
And it doesn't matter what sport either, if they play softball or whatever. We just wanted to get physical activity in, so we played dodgeball, volleyball, anything athletic, just to get them going.
I love it. I love it. And so you realize there needs to be a balance. Let's hear from our next guest, Eddie Carieri. He's a retired head coach of St. Leo College from 1981 to 1982. Also head coach of the University of South Florida from 1986 to 2006. Eddie, your head coaching career actually spanned, check this out, 1,313 games. Woo! That's a lot. You completed your career, which included 1,496 games. Certainly accolades to you, sir. While the numbers indicate longevity in coaching and ranking, they also indicate a great deal of success in the competitive and the tradition of rich college basketball environment of Florida. Eddie, a question for you, sir. Share with our viewers, since your retirement, What have you been doing to stay busy, and what are you most passionate about?
Well, thank you very much, Serena. First of all, if I could, I'd like to thank Bill and Kevin Kapik for the use of their house and this beautiful backdrop you see here in River Verde, Florida. But I've been retired for over 10 years now. I have a passion still to this day for teaching. And I always believe that a good baseball coach is a great instructor. And it's all about teaching. So I've coached some travel ball teams, but I'm kind of weaning off of that right now and just doing some individual work, private, one-on-one type lessons. Again, just to be able to get outside and enjoy the fresh air and work with some young players.
So what you're telling me is you're not done yet.
Well, that whole career seemed like a blur, to be honest with you, but no, I still enjoy it as long as I can physically get out there and do it. That's what I'm going to do.
Excellent. Well, you know what? We're going to get a little bit deeper into our subject matter. We're so happy we got to know you guys, your careers, your background, your passion. So we're going to take a sponsor break. And when we come back, we're going to get into this conversation of video gaming and how it's impacting your children.
Choice and opportunity, the foundation of the Capital Choice mission. We believe everyone has the choice to take control of their own financial independence, and we want to give more people the opportunity to achieve their goals. At Capital Choice, we help make financial wellness a reality, and you can be a critical part of the charge, a part of something bigger. Our associates are more than just salespeople to us. We're a team, a family that supports each other, and we have fun doing it. We want you to succeed. So we offer mentorship and training to help you get comfortable with the industry and serving clients. Our goal is to get you to a place of independence, to be in business for yourself. You choose how to grow, and we'll never take that away from you. Your business focus, how you build your team, how you serve clients, how high you climb, full-time versus part-time. The sky's the limit, and we'll be there for help and support along the way. At Capital Choice, we are passionate, empathetic, real. We give everyone equal opportunity, but you have the control and make the decisions. Want to see what you can achieve with more choice and opportunity? Join our team and find freedom with Capital Choice. Your business, your choice.
Welcome back to Uncomfortable Conversations. We're going to kind of unpack this topic of playing video games and why it's so popular among all ages. You know, video gaming is a multi-billion-dollar industry, bringing in more money even than movies and on some DVDs. On average, girls spend more than an hour per day playing video games, and boys spend more than 2 hours per day. I know we saw in that commercial, it said 3 hours a day, but this is on average now. That's what we've kind of got. These teens often spend even more time than the younger children. Video games they've changed now since they've become very sophisticated and realistic. As I said, some of them, I feel like I'm right there on the field. The green, the grass is just so green, and the players, I mean, the agility and everything is just so real. Some games, though, they connect you to the internet, which opens up another can of worms because now you don't know who you're interacting with. You know, are these adults or are these children? So we're going to go to Dr. Esau and have her unpack a few things about this.
Thank you, Sabrina. While some games have educational content, many of the most popular games emphasize negative themes, and they promote the killing of people or animals, the use and abuse of drugs, alcohol, criminal behavior, disrespect for authority and the law, sexual exploitation, and violence toward women, racial, sexual, and gender stereotypes, foul language, and obscene gestures. So we invited Scott Hammond, retired MLB player, and Ed Carieri, retired college baseball coach, to the show to get their perspective on this topic. So let's start with Scott. Scott, gamers spent an estimated 135 billion with a B, dollars on games in 2018, according to Newzoo. Should parents be alarmed about this?
There's no doubt about it. I see it constantly. It's I'll talk with parents about, you have a kid on a routine, you have them working out, getting stronger, bettering their game, and their time with me is spent. I'm supposed to be there to help give them new information, right, and get them on board with what they're going to be doing at home and a workout routine, and they're supposed to be getting better every time they see me. So in other words, your hour or so with me is not going to do it for you, right? You have to go home and you have to spend that time and your time on your own and get better at what we worked on. And then you come back in and I see you getting better and I give you more information, and that's the way it's supposed to work. And the parents will often right off the bat go, they're too busy, their thumbs are working. And that's what they're saying. They're at home, this is what they're doing, right? So they have to, it's important. It's something they have to actually contend with. A bigger thing that I'm seeing for me personally is that, when I was growing up and coming to play, there wasn't that type of competition there for the player's time or for my time either, right? You went out and you played sports, and you played sports outside. Now they're playing sports inside with their thumbs, right? So they're not putting in the time that they should because they're at home playing the video game. So it's like it used to be there would be something else in the way, or there wasn't anything else in the way. You didn't have to compete with it much else. You just had school, family, and then sports pretty much, right? If that's what they're doing. Now, the big guy and the 500-pound gorilla, so to speak, is the video games and trying to compete with that on top of school and all the other things that teenagers have to deal with.
Wow. It's an amazing and interesting dynamic. Ed, due to the pandemic, the numbers are rising when it comes to children not spending time outside playing sports. Is this a problem?
Well, it definitely is, in my opinion. It's probably a use versus abuse issue. For example, full disclosure, I've not played a video game, yet my wife plays daily. And her theory is that it will help delay any dementia that might be in the cards down the road. But in my opinion, for the young kids, high school age kids, they're missing out on not only a sport that they could be playing, but on nature itself, on God's beautiful earth, on fishing, boating, hiking, whatever activities they could be involved with outside. And again, maybe when you look at use and abuse, maybe on the rainy day, they play more video games, or like was said earlier, the parent allows only a certain time per day that they're allowed to play, and they have to get outside and do something at other times during the day. That would be my view.
I think you make an interesting point in terms of, use versus abuse. As we heard in the video, I think it's interesting too. Your wife says she does it to delay dementia, and the research shows that if you're doing more than 21 hours, that it leads to dementia. So it's just amazing, I think, the different outlooks, because sometimes we think we're doing a good thing that ends up maybe not so good. So I think you make a great point in terms of use versus abuse. Sabrina, what are your thoughts on it?
Unmute myself. Well, yeah, I think there definitely has to be a balance. I don't think you should totally eliminate it. We were kind of in the generation where the games were just coming in with our kids. So we learned quickly that we had to monitor the hours. I think Scott alluded to that a little bit when these Ataris and Game Boys and all these things came out, and we had the big screen TVs. I mean, they consumed the whole living room, and the whole family would be sitting there. And then my son's have this whole gaming thing was going on all day. You guys know that for hours, because I had a son and these big boys. But what we found that they were more aggressive after they watched after they played video games. They were more aggressive. They get into, confrontations and kind of roughing each other up. These are boys now. And so we realized we had to cut that time down. So we didn't take it away. We allowed them to play the sports, but we monitored it. We cut it down. Okay, turn it off. It's been 2 hours, believe it or not. They were, we gave them an hour, sometimes 2, and then they had to cut it off. Go outside, go run, go ride a bike, go play, go swim, go do something, but you're done with this. And so it worked out better for them. They needed other stimulation than just sitting in front of that screen and playing it, so the balance is there. Gary, what are your thoughts on this before we move forward?
Well, yeah, first of all, this a lot of information. I feel like a court reporter over here, with my Reddit backdrop. I'm taking notes. I mean, Coach Eddie, Coach Scott, Dr. Katrina, you guys all have some great points to bring as well. And it's just a lot to take in, but thinking about this subject, this was the biggest takeaway. I was thinking about this. It's really, I feel like it's about serving, like whether we serve others or we serve ourselves. And so when I'm thinking about people playing video games just nonstop for many hours, all you're doing is you're serving you're serving your pleasure, whether it's to kill somebody, whether it's to accomplish a certain level, whatever those video games, to get to the next, it's all about you. It's not about anybody else. Yeah, you may be playing with other kids, but it's really about you. And I'm thinking all these other things in life. In fact, I go to like this foundational thing, and Dr. K, I'll call you Dr. K. I don't know, it sounds catchy. And Sabrina, you know what? It's more blessed to give than to receive. I take those words, man. That's more foundational to me. And you know what? That's what I think. I think it's important. Yeah, of course, balance. But when you're sitting there at your computer playing this game, all you do is you care about yourself. And I don't care if you're playing video games or if you're doing something else. When all you do is care about yourself, it's not good. It's not the way we are made.
I like that, Gary. Right? Gary always comes from a different place, and that's what we appreciate about him, because he's right. So as parents, we need to teach and monitor. These are those uncomfortable conversations, but really, as parents, we play a role in it. As an adult, we got to do some self-inventory. But let's talk about the pros and cons. There are pros and cons, and we're going to get your thoughts after I kind of go through these, so bear with me. Video game pros. Curriculum tests have shown that computer games will enhance literacy. Since computer games have been included in schools, students can see better test results. Tests often encourage students to practice and incorporate what they've experienced in real life situations. Health and military educational systems utilize simulations type games to demonstrate techniques and tactics. Okay, now life lessons. Several video games show children how to delegate, function as a squad, and to focus. Internet-enabled games that encourage children to play with their real-life peers also involve teamwork and separation of tasks to reach a score. Improved brain activity, computer games have been shown to help us develop abilities to think and overcome problems. They help us to make split-second choices, process knowledge more efficiently, and multitask more effectively. Players may also develop hand-eye coordination and increase auditory comprehension. Exercise. Motion control devices like Nintendo and Wii were once considered to be the solution to parental fears regarding video games. That now has contributed to obesity. Here you go. Yet tests have found that such games alone will not improve the average degree of behavior in adolescence. So now we've kind of heard that. Let's ask some questions here. Scott, what is your perspective of children starting at early ages and the impact it will have on them playing in the high school or college arenas?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert on this, so I can only see from my experience that I would think that the kids should be outside right off the bat and getting their imagination going, right? I mean, I remember as a kid riding in the back of the car and you just watched all the trees go by and you saw where you were at, right? Nowadays you can travel and you turn and look in the back seats and no one's even looking out the windows, right? They're so engulfed in their video cameras and their games and whatnot. I think they should be playing right off the bat. Aren't their habits going to be set at an early age? I mean, we're going to turn them on to this computer world right off the bat and forget about being outside and throwing rocks and walking through streams and, being at the beach. I don't know. I think it's, you got to be able to say no. Parents need to got to be able to say no. And I think more and more parents have trouble with that. They're competing with a lot also. Right? These kids have so much out there. There's so many things to hit on that they're being pulled in so many different directions. I think it has to be, the parents have to join in hard here and put some limitations on them. But I personally believe that kids should be kids and experiencing nature and everything else and their own physicality. And less video games would be better for me, my opinion.
Great perspective. Ed, what is your advice? What advice, Ed, would you give parents that have children that do not spend enough time playing outside sports?
Well, again, I just think that they have to try to limit and try to give a vast variety of things for these kids to do. Like Scott said, to experience nature. I mean, God's earth is so beautiful. The world's a mess, but his earth is so beautiful. And I just think kids should be out there experiencing nature in whatever form, all those activities that we just mentioned. I did just think of one other pro possibly. I remember coaching those teams at USF all those years. By the way, Scott's the greatest catcher I ever coached or coached against. But I remember those teams, and you as a college coach, you just worry about these college kids and what they might want to do at night and that kind of thing. But I had several teams and they were into video games. So that was great because I just kept them in the hotel room playing video games till lights out at midnight. So I guess that would be a positive.
Wow. I mean, that is great. And Scott, again, congratulations on that outstanding career that you have had in the baseball industry. We feel so honored to have you with us. I really like you saying finding that balance, Eddie. I mean, when I was growing up, my parents said we wanted to be in the house because back then it was TV. We didn't have, video games was TV. Go outside and play. Do you remember that, Dr. Esau? Do not come in this house. Go outside and play. And we got our feet dirty, our hands dirty, and we were chasing butterflies and getting wet with the hose pipe, Remember those days, right?
Drinking out of the hose, Sabrina. How about that one?
Yes.
You know what? Yes.
Drinking out of the water hose. Yes.
That was the best water ever. If you haven't drank out of a water hose, you got to do it right.
Now it's bottled water that you got to pay for, Evian. I never thought I'd be spending money on water, but just a FYI for those who aren't in Florida, if you do come to Florida and you decide to drink out of the water hose, just make sure you let it go a little bit because usually lizards get up in there.
Why did you have to tell me that, Gary?
Well, I'm just saying.
They do. It's true.
I'm sure now. You just ruined it. Okay.
Sorry about that.
You ruined it for the ladies.
Oh my God.
Speaking of that, Scott's smiling. He probably already knew that. Dr. Esau, do you see anything positive when it comes to meeting new people online with these esports?
I honestly, I have to say no. I mean, I get that, people feel like that, they're meeting these people and they're their friends. They know them from all over the place, but you don't know who's on the other side of that screen. And I just often think my mind immediately goes, I guess, to the negative about it, when I think about bullying and, people being predators and stuff like that. It just, I'm so glad, that we didn't have as much technology when my daughter was into that era. So I just don't think so. I just think it opens up a whole can of worms. We have our children communicating with people that they don't know, and we just don't know where it leads to. So, yeah, I can't think of a positive thing about that. I don't think it's enhancing social skills or anything like that. Again, I think it just leads to, it opens the door to too much danger, I think, in my opinion.
Stranger danger. I remember when my son was home playing, and I see these strange names on the screen. I knew who his friends were because the names pop up, and I'd see Joe Blow and Scott. And I was like, "Who is this?" Oh, that's some kid I'm playing. I'm like, "How do you even know that's a kid?" You don't know who they're interacting with, and then they become regulars.
Yeah.
They start playing with this person. I don't even know. I don't know who that is. There are some dangers to that. You don't know all that communication. Gary, you want to weigh in on that, and then we'll go to sponsor break.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, especially for kids, there's this danger because of their age, because of their immaturity. They just don't know. They haven't seen a lot of life. They have no idea what adults are capable of. And so that's dangerous. But, even us adults, meeting people, say like on LinkedIn, you make a connection. I still don't think, even as adults, that's good enough. I think we all need to take it a step further. Obviously, we can do Zooms. It's much better to go in person, meet a person, talk to a person. So relationships, building true relationships. And if kids were able to do that, through games, that's fine. But they're not able to, probably because of distance and just because of their, just their age. I just, like Dr. K said, man, I just would not. I think that's dangerous. It's dangerous for kids.
Thank you, Gary. And you know what? You brought up a good point. Teaching our children the value of building relationships, and you can't do that electronically. So there's another piece to this that, we had not really thought about. There's the gaming piece, but, not interacting with people, not face-to-face, kneecap to kneecap, as you guys call it, and out on the field and playing. If you really want to learn how to make decisions as a team, go out and play baseball. Go out and play football. You're going to learn a lot of lessons, right? I see Scott. You're going to learn a lot of lessons, right, Eddie, on learning how to balance life, teamwork, all of those things. You're going to learn it physically on the field. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this. Thank you.
Perhaps you've seen videos like this appear in your social media feeds lately. Stop! The concept is pretty simple. Parents prank their kids by unplugging the child's video game console in the middle of gameplay, and the reactions are viral gold. Stop! Stop! No one likes to be forced to stop having fun, but something different is happening here. If you were to take away a child's books or Legos, you're not likely to get a reaction like this. So what's going on here? Why are these meltdowns so dramatic?
I've treated a number of children over years who struggle with problematic video game behaviors. I think one of the most important things to keep in mind is that the child will be able to tell you, I'm trying to not do this, but I can't stop. And I can't get myself to stop. I don't want to behave this way, but I'm struggling.
Why did you do that? That was my game to get into the Overwatch League. You literally just ruined it.
According to Dr. Milham, these reactions aren't necessarily because of an addiction to gaming. Instead, what we witness in these videos are children who are victims of their own biology.
Being able to tolerate the feeling of frustration or that moment of sadness when you decide, I'm not going to continue doing this, that is crucial.
One of the reasons the children in these videos find it so hard to control themselves is because they don't yet have a fully developed prefrontal cortex.
The prefrontal cortex is a key component in the brain that's involved in helping us to control impulses and urges. When you have something like the video game being turned off suddenly, the child is faced with having to feel those negative emotions.
Another factor is dopamine, which is often referred to as the brain's pleasure chemical, because it's associated with feelings of euphoria, motivation, and concentration.
Dopamine is a key component of regulating reward mechanisms in the brain. The stimulation we receive from playing a video game impacts the same pathways that are present when one is becoming intoxicated with a substance. So it's no surprise that many of the behaviors and reactions that we see for a child who's struggling with having this sudden stop brought about in their video game playing has analogs to someone who is being asked to stop usage of a substance.
Let's say a child is about to eat a piece of candy. The anticipation of eating that candy gives the child a spike of dopamine. Then their parent yanks that candy away from them. That action will cause a drop in dopamine, which will upset the child. Video game designers have gotten remarkably adept at keeping gamers entranced with a steady source of intermittent rewards. More rewards means a constant stream of dopamine released into the brain throughout gameplay. So when a parent pulls the plug on a child's video game, there's an even more powerful effect.
Video games are inherently designed to be stimulating and exciting and to draw us in, and that to some degree is a healthy phenomenon. It's just that for some it's more difficult to control than for others. Is the video game somehow impairing their ability to function in the home, at school, or with other children? If we're not seeing any problematic behaviors and it's just concern about the frequency, then I think we can work on just trying to bring the frequency down.
For many households across the country, meltdowns over video games are a very real part of everyday life. Parents we have spoken with say they find themselves in a battle of wills with their children when they tell them to turn off a video game and do homework, eat dinner, or go to bed. Dr. Milham recommends implementing 2 basic rules. Number 1, establish clear and consistent rules about the days and time of gameplay. Number 2, enforce a transition period between gameplay and bedtime. Dr. Milham also recommends that parents be wary of an underlying problem. Games may just be a coping mechanism.
One of the most important things is to really curb the video game playing and monitor it and put interventions in place before it's a problem. Once the video game playing becomes a problem, at that point, parents will probably need to seek guidance from whether it be therapists, counselors, or other care providers in order to help to assess and deal with the challenges at hand.
Wow, if you've ever had kids, I'm sure you've seen that happen because it happened in my household. Now I have a granddaughter, she's 9, and we have to regulate that device. And sometimes she gets a little upset. You know, don't take this away from me. But I was just getting ready to time it's over. Okay. You need to go swim. So those behaviors actually happen. Let's go to Dr. Katrina though, to talk about some other issues with this whole gaming and online scenario.
So we've hit on some of these very briefly, but apart from the potential problems of online predators, cyberbullying, virtual hangouts, they rob our children of the opportunity to practice their social skills. We talked about, the importance of relationship building, and to move their bodies from one house to another. Kids with weak self-regulation or who have a rough time adjusting are more prone to gambling addiction. It could be because the video games provide a simple way to fill a vacuum generated while real world partnerships become challenging to establish. But, part of the challenge is because they don't get out and do it. They are, got the thumb thing going on. Playing brings dopamine into our bodies, which gives us a sense of satisfaction and encourages our brains to play it again. Whereas video games are supposed to be addictive. John Hobson, a software developer at Microsoft Game Developers, is also a professor of behavioral and brain sciences who blogs about game design. So let's talk a little bit about our thoughts on this. We'll start with Scott and then go to Ed.
I just got a pause in there. What exactly is the question on this again? That was kind of a long explanation.
It is a long explanation. This is just talking about some of the cons to video gaming, which is we've kind of touched on some of them, but we're talking about like cyberbullying, online predators, and how it robs our children of the opportunity to actually get outside and play and go from one house to the next.
Yeah, once again, it's a huge issue. I mean, it's a huge issue. You would think, being a sports coach, that you would all you'd see is them playing their sports and doing their thing. You don't understand that behind the scenes, the parents are having a battle with them because they're not putting the time in to work out to get better at the lessons that their parents are paying for them. they're just doing the lesson, and they go home and back to playing games. And then you see them come in weekly and they struggle. A lot of parents have to put the hammer down on them to get them to do what they're supposed to be doing. And it's a constant struggle. I wonder if parents, when they limit their time to social media, if they should be including social media as far as their videos and whatever else is, and playing games all at the same time. Where I wonder if that's separate. Like they're allowed so many social hours on their phone, and then they're allowed so many hours on their gamer. It might be good to add all that together and keep it down. And I also look at everything as being an extracurricular activity, right? So it's like baseball is an extracurricular. It's after the curriculum. So if you're not going to get the grades, then you're not allowed the phone or the game. The same thing as all the phone. You just take it away from them if you have to.
You bring up a good point, Scott, because I think so many times we consider it different, social media, one thing, gaming, another. But to your point, if we're going to say we're going to limit, social media to an hour, we need to do the same for the games. And, and you touched on it earlier, as parents, we have to learn to say no. It's a 2-letter word, but we don't like to say it. And sometimes maybe it's because, it's keeping our children occupied while we're doing something else. So we allow it. And, next thing you know, 2-3 hours gone by and they're just, head is in the game. So I think you bring up a good point. Ed, what are your thoughts?
Well, Dr. Katrina, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. We have a 4-year-old grandson, and he is enamored with that cell phone. And I think sometimes, to occupy him, if we're doing something else, then, we give him that phone. But one thing crossed my mind is that if it's 21 hours a week, that is too much. And if it can lead to an actual addiction and so forth, and actually possibly lead to dementia as opposed to retarding dementia coming on, then we need mass media. We need way more coverage of these negative issues so that the general public can read these new studies and research and then formulate their own opinions on this topic.
Wow. Absolutely. Awareness is everything. Awareness is everything. And so many times, even putting it out there, especially if you're, a parent, a single parent home, a lot of times we use different things just to kind of cope and for the help, but it can turn into a negative real quick.
I'd like to chime in on that a little bit. Scott or Eddie, have you really had to have that conversation with one of your players about, look, you're spending too much time, part of your concentration problems, I see, or your mom has come to me and talked to me. Has that ever happened where you had to call that out? Either one of you?
Well, for me, it's happened numerous times. It's one of the biggest issues for these kids to play. It's that's what they do constantly. I see that more from parents and them mentioning that you got to get them away from the game, right? Their thumbs are doing all the talking that happens to them constantly. And you have to remind the player, listen, you have to go home and get prepared. Playing baseball on TV isn't the same as going outside and doing it out in the yard and throwing the ball. It's instead of working on your hand-eye on the console, maybe you can work on your hand-eye really actually hitting a ball or actually catching a ball. But you have to. I just think you're dealing with addictions, right? And when people start getting addicted to that phone, not only do they have all their social media, but now all of a sudden you add the Game Boy and whatever else is going on, whatever games they're playing, and it's overwhelming. They get they're on social media or in front of some screen so many hours a day. It's something that you're not just competing with. I mean, it's your number one competition.
Wow, that is powerful. Hearing that firsthand. Gary, you have any closing remarks on that?
You know what? This is getting exciting, even though I'm not really a gamer and all that. Just used to play Pong when I was little. First, we all probably know about Pong, but you know what, Scott? What you're saying is, I'm thinking about these kids, these athletes. They don't know this yet. They're still young, but just like I was an athlete and I went through this game of life, and what I found as a player at 27 was I found a way to give my best in sports and outside of sports. But I never knew that these choices I was making outside of sport actually affected my sport. And you know what? Now these kids, a part of their game of life is this technology thing, is this playing games and all that. And I'm not saying this is illegal, but when you overdo something, when you step over this line, when you're abusing it, that's when it's not good for you. So I love to encourage kids, but just to encourage kids, especially those athletes, to say, listen, I got a way for you to give your best, not just on the field, but off the field. And you know what? You're going to have to work on all areas of life. And one of those areas is going to probably be gaming and technology and being on the phone, and maybe some other areas are grades and relationships and your parents and your, all these choices. So Sabrina, you get me all excited. I mean, like, it's not about the game, it's turning into this game. I'm spitting on my phone, on my screen. What's going on?
Gary, that's why we love you. We'll always have you on the show. I do want to give Eddie Carieri a final say here, because I want to, really honor you on this show today. You were able to bring Scott to us. We sure appreciate him and his wealth of knowledge. Eddie, what do you have to say? Final words on this topic of sports and gaming and the benefits of the physicalness being on the field. You got this, Eddie.
Okay, thank you. And I know Scott would agree with this, but whenever we've done camps and clinics in the past, we talk about the 3 A's, and the 3 A's being ability, that's pretty much God-given, and academics, and then attitude. And it's all about these kids growing up with a good attitude, being a good team player. And I like the idea of using the video games as a carrot, because if your academics are not in order, you are not going to get a college scholarship. You have to be a student. And so that's where the academics play into this. And we just encourage kids to have a great attitude. And I think parents could use these video games as a carrot to, try to get the best results they can from their kids.
Thank you so much. And again, you're in a beautiful setting. Let's acknowledge that again. Whose home was that?
Michelle and Kevin Kapik, Tierra, Florida.
Tierra Verde, beautiful. We want to certainly give thanks to them. Thanks to Scott Hemmond. Thank you, Eddie Carieri. Thank you, Gary Rogers. Thank you always, Dr. Katrina. Your insight is always so on point. We want to thank all of our listeners for joining us today, and that we unpacked the topic. We learned some things today. I know I did. I did not know those statistics. And get out and get physical. We got baseball here, baseball camps. We got football. We got all kinds of things. So parents, if you're listening, encourage your kids to get physical. Scott, is there some type of baseball camp somewhere? Is there anything we can drive parents to? Can you think offhand, or Eddie?
Well, Scott's up in Destin, but when we leave your show, which by the way was a great show, Sabrina, good work. When we leave here, Scott is going to work with Michelle and Kevin's son, Jake, who's a catcher at Northside Christian over here in St. Petersburg. So we're headed to the field.
Excellent, excellent. Gary, what website is that?
Oh, I was just gonna say, did Eddie, Coach Eddie or Coach Scott, do you guys happen to have a website or maybe even an email that you could let people know in case they've got some kids that are even wanting, maybe they can't get help like in person, but I mean, even these Zooms, even talking this, mental toughness thing and just your experiences. I mean, we can do it on the phone as well. Is there any kind of, email you could share or anything?
There's all kinds of spring break camps that are coming up right now, and everybody's having different spring breaks. It's hard to know who's even coming down to Florida during spring break, and we've seen what spring training's like. It's very limited, but baseball is coming back. We do summer camps all summer long up at my place, ScottHemondBaseball.com. You can check that out, and we put on all kinds of stuff. If you look around, even a lot of the little leagues that are out there, and the city. Most city parks departments will have all kinds of scheduling for you. They do all kinds of, like, I tie my summer camps in with the city. So I just pick the kids from the city and just add them right into my camps. So it makes it great for the city, makes it great for me, and they get lots of exposure. And I think more and more municipalities are doing that, right? They're trying to get things organized, and a lot of the facilities have been upgraded in so many places now. They're doing great with parks. So they're trying out there. There's a lot of great places to go. You just got to research a little bit. I would check with your local government and see what's going on.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap this up today. Thank you. We hope you guys will come back because there's so much to learn. The balance of life, as Gary likes to put it, the game of life. There's so much that we can learn. Gary Rogers, checkyourgame.com if you want to see what he's got going on. Thank you again, Dr. Katrina. And we're going to ask that our listeners tune in next week to Uncomfortable Conversation, and we'll have more things that we want to talk about that we'd love to unpack and get various perspectives on. Thank you again, gentlemen. We enjoyed the show, and we will see our viewers next week. Bye.